Hello, everyone. Today, for the devotional, I'm going to share a verse with you, and I'm going to share how God's been speaking to me through that verse in this season. So, the verse is Daniel 9:18, and I'm going to read both verse 18 and 19 for you today. Oh, my God, incline your ear and hear. Open your eyes and see our desolations and the city that is called by your name. For we do not present our pleas before you because of our righteousness, but because of your great mercy. O Lord, hear. O Lord, forgive. O Lord, pay attention and act. Delay not for your own sake, O my God, because your city and your people are called by your name. Now I'm going to read the second half of verse 18 again, because that's the heart of what I want to share today. For we do not present our pleas before you because of our righteousness, but because of your great mercy. We do not present our pleas before you because of our righteousness, but because of your great mercy. God's been highlighting this verse in the season for me, and I think one of the big reasons why is because I've been going to God in some way in this season based on my own righteousness. I think that with all of the change and disruption happening in the world and the uncertainty that I'm facing in life, part of me, it feels like the response I have to take to that is to try to clamp down and have as much control as possible in the things, in the areas of my life that aren't being disrupted, that I need to try to stay in control and try to do everything right because it feels like so much is going wrong. And I think part of me feels like I have to do everything in my power to make sure whatever I can make goes right, so that I can deal with what's going wrong. And saying it out loud, it doesn't make much sense, and it's not what I want to be doing. It's not the reaction that I wish that I was having in this, but I feel like God is calling me out of that posture of striving and hustling to try to stay on top of everything, and I feel like He's convicting me that that is relying on my own righteousness, that is feeling like if I'm not doing everything right, then something is at stake, and I see it bleeding into my relationship with God, where it feels like if I'm not praying the right way, or if I'm not worshiping the right way, or saying the right things to God, that maybe He won't hear me, or maybe He won't respond. And that's a really hard thing to say out loud, because I know God is not that way, but sometimes these deep reactions can go unchecked, and I'm grateful that God is calling me out of that, and I think He's calling us as His people to move away from that kind of posture that's kind of a performance. It's always trying to do better, to be better, to even seem better, and I think God's calling us away from that, and He's calling us instead to simply meditate on who He is, to reflect on His character and His nature instead of being obsessed with our own righteousness. And I think that's what Daniel is saying in this passage. That's how he's framing his prayer, that he's not asking God to move based on anything right that he could do or anything right that the people of Israel could do. He's asking God to move because he knows God is merciful and he's confident in God's character. And this verse is also special to me because recently, as I was preparing for a conversation with Liba, who had asked to hear more about my heart for songwriting and worship, I set out to write a song for this season, and I asked God to show me and guide me through the process of writing a song for where His people are in this season, and specifically for Plymouth. And this verse was my foundational verse that I was meditating on as I wrote this song. And the song's called Faithful One, and in the verses, they describe this desire that we have to see God move in our lives, that we've heard who He is and we know how He's moved in history, but we want to see Him show up in our own lives. And the chorus says, "We ask you to move, we want you to come, but not because of anything we've done." And I think that's what Daniel is saying here, right? He's saying that it's not because of our righteousness that I'm asking you to move, but because of your great mercy. And I think one way to actually put this verse into practice and to follow Daniel's example in his prayer is to meditate on who God is, what His character is like, what His nature is like. And I think I love to do that through music, and I want to actually share the bridge from that song, Faithful One, that I wrote with you guys today, and I want to invite you to sing it with me. And so I'll play through and sing the bridge a few times, and after the first time or after you've heard the words and learned the melody, I ask that you would join me in singing it. And I pray that as we meditate on who God is, as we do so through music, that we would grow closer to God and grow closer to one another. You're the faithful one, your love is unchanging. You're the faithful one we can trust. You're the gracious one, you give without measure. There's always more where grace comes from. You're the faithful one. You're the faithful one, oh, your love is unchanging. You're the faithful one we can trust. You're the gracious one. You're the gracious one, you give without measure. Oh, there's always more where grace comes from. You're the faithful one. You're the faithful one, oh, your love is unchanging. You're the faithful one we can trust. One last time, you're the gracious one. You're the gracious one, oh, you give without measure. There's always more where grace comes from. There's always more. There's always more where grace comes from. There's always more where grace comes from. So I hope those words will stay with you in this season, that God is the faithful one, that his love is unchanging, that he is gracious, and there is always more where grace comes from. And I pray that God would guide us in moving out of the posture of trying to earn our way toward him or trying to be in control or do everything right. And instead of relying on our own righteousness, that we'll be able to move toward resting in God's character, being confident in who he is and knowing who we are before him.